Normal Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition. Been busted? Need a lawyer? The following program, Normal Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting normal.org, NORML.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of Normal Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of Normal. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to think and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents Normal Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, Normal's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good afternoon, tokers and tokettes, and welcome. It is Monday, January 9th, 2012, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Thanks for joining us. Glad you could be here. Hey, did anyone else have an interesting weekend? I know I did, but we're not going to talk about that right now. Instead, we're going to switch over and do some introductions on our new high-definition 1080p cams, although we're not sending it to you in 1080p because Ustream can't handle that, but we could if we wanted to. We go over here to camera 3 and Ganja John hanging out.
Is it 3D? Ganja? I can't tell.
You're not. Everything's 2D for Ganja John.
It's true. You all look like comic books.
How was your weekend, man?
That was good. I didn't do shit.
Good.
I mean anything. Sorry.
That's okay.
Radio mode.
Radio mode. No, that's cool. Glad everything's going. Are you looking forward to the national championship game tonight?
I am looking forward to the national championship game tonight. As a matter of fact, I need to call our buddy Herb to see what he's doing.
Maybe we ought to hit up Herb Thrasher, our good friend from Normal Rocks. He's, of course, a big fan of the Alabama Crimson Tide, Roll Tide. We also need to go and talk to Cannabis Carrie out there in the virtual studio. How you doing, Carrie?
I'm doing great, guys. Welcome to the second week of January.
Yeah, good to have you here. Carrie brings us our headlines right at the beginning of the show. So, Carrie, what do we got in the news today?
Well, we have another celebrity bust. I'm going to start with that one. Also, we're going to go to a few different states that have legislation about marijuana coming up hopefully on their November ballots. We're going to cover that. And we have a follow-up on a case that's near and dear to our hearts here on The Stash. I'm going to let you know about that as well. All coming up in the Hemp Headline News.
All right. Thank you so Oh, there we go. Thank you so much, Carrie. Got the wrong button there. Thank you so much. We'll be back for that in just a minute. Also on today's show, it's Roots Monday, so we're going to dig into the archives of reefer jazz for you and bring you some more great music, so stay tuned for that. Also, half past the show, I'm going to take some time and talk about the language of legalization and some ideas on how we can get everyone on the same page as to what legalization really means. And at the end of the show, a radical rant on the meaning of unity and how we can bring people together in the marijuana movement and avoid this backbiting and bickering that have been plaguing us for far too long now. It's time for us to graduate junior high school and get busy on the hard work of legalizing marijuana and ending this prohibition that is hurting so many people. We've got to do it, and it's up to us to do it. So join us there at half past. And then in hour 2, it's Toker Talk Radio. We'll take your calls at 971-533-7111. And we'll have all sorts of things to discuss and some more news. So stay tuned. We're back after this.
You're listening to Normal Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Hi, I'm Radical Russ. One of the best things about marijuana is the wonderful aroma. But when you travel a lot like I do, that aroma becomes a suspicious smell. That's why I endorse Stealth-Products.com, the leaders in smell-proof containers. From smell-proof vacuum bags to smell-proof backpacks and duffel bags, all the way to smell-proof digital safes, Stealth-Products.com has you covered. Stealth-Products.com brings you safe, secure, odorless layers of protection with activated carbon fiber. Backpacks and duffel bags are simple black so as not to attract attention with a logo or a flashy design. Now, nothing is perfectly odor controlled from the detection of drug dogs, but with proper vigilance, containers from Stealth-Products.com will help you avoid nosy humans.
You're now listening to Illit Beats.
Stealth-Products.com. Stealth-Products.com.
The children! My God! Won't somebody think of the children?
Aloha, this is Zion Thompson from The Green, and you're listening to Normal Show Live.
Weedmaps.com. I'm Radical Russ from Normal. In my job as outreach coordinator, I travel every month, and when I'm on the road, I need a fast, accurate way to find the medical marijuana dispensaries in the area. So I turn to Weedmaps.com. Weedmaps.com has the best dispensary locator online or on your mobile device. Search by zip code or let Weedmaps find you, and in seconds you'll have the addresses, phone numbers, and customer service reviews for the medical marijuana dispensaries in the local area. Weedmaps.com also has a section devoted to helping you find a doctor who understands and recommends medical marijuana under your state's law. You can even check prices on the Medical Marijuana Stock Exchange. Coming soon, you'll even be able to find the listings of normal attorneys and chapters, local head shops and grow shops, and the best weed-friendly businesses. Weedmaps.com has the information you need to be an informed cannabis consumer. Visit Weedmaps.com today, a proud sponsor of the Normal Network.
Inhaling deeply of the sacred smoke.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's Normal News with Cannabis Carrie.
Like his friend Willie Nelson, rapper royalty Snoop Dogg was busted on Saturday in the same town that Willie was last year. It is tough to find an alternate route from western Texas into New Mexico, but if you're on a tour bus and you're packing marijuana, you might want to try anyway. Snoop Dogg was arrested by U.S. Border Patrol agents and detained in Sierra Blanca, Texas, after a Texas officer says he detected the odor of marijuana coming from inside of his tour bus. That was enough for them to run a drug dog through the bus, where he sniffed out a prescription bottle that contained some joints, along with another container with some marijuana in it as well, that was hidden in a wastebasket in the back of the bus. All in all, Snoop Dogg's fans might be disappointed to find out that Snoop only had about 2 ounces total, considerably less than the 6 ounces. I'm sorry, I mean 4. No, I mean 2 ounces, or just about the same that Willie Nelson was found with last year. Snoop Dogg, whose real name is Calvin Broadus, freely admitted that the marijuana was his, according to the arrest report. Now, Snoop Dogg does reside in California and has a current medical marijuana card from that state, but as you know, that doesn't protect you outside of the state of California. So Snoop Dogg was issued a citation for misdemeanor drug possession and released. He was given a court appearance for on or before January 20th, and he is allowed to plead guilty and pay a $537 fine. Otherwise, he can challenge the citation and make his case in court, although finding a jury of super cool people as Snoop Dogg's peers in Sierra Blanca, Texas, might be a tough job.
I just wonder if the judge and the DA will let him get away with probation if he comes in and sings Gin and Juice.
Ain't nothing but a G thing, baby.
I wonder if that's how this works. I don't know. Hey, I think the Hudspeth County people out there in Texas and Sierra Blanca have just found themselves the latest cash cow, man. All they got to do is go on to Ticketmaster.com, figure out who's on tour that smokes weed, figure out when they're going to be coming from L.A. toward New Mexico, going through Texas or whatever, and just pull over a tour bus. Anytime you see a tour bus, just pull it over. You're likely to be able to get $500 out of them. Is that the way this works now?
And do us all a favor and plant something on Nickelback.
Yeah. Why is it Snoop Dogg and Willie that are getting busted? Why can't we get Nickelback?
Come on, Creed. Get Creed.
Something. Can we? Good point. Oh my goodness. Thank you for that story, Carrie. Let's go on.
And I really do love my job, and we've come to a place where marijuana law reform is so exciting during the election years. Today, a group of Michigans are anxiously awaiting for the okay from the Michigan State Secretary so they can get started on the task of collecting signatures to get a legalization effort on the November ballot. They hope to begin that process this week. Now, the proposal would amend the state constitution and would end the prohibition of marijuana in the state of Michigan. It would also allow the cultivation, use, sale, and distribution of cannabis to those over the age of 21. The coalition of patients and activists call themselves the Committee for a Safer Michigan and say that the medical marijuana law that was passed in the state in 2008 has too many legal challenges, and the adversarial stance against medical marijuana by the Michigan Attorney General Bill Schuette have electrified activists to move towards a legalization effort this year. In an interview recently, Schuette said that the law was full of holes and accused activists who helped pass the 2008 medical marijuana law of purposely making the wording of the law vague. Michigan has 129,500 patients currently enrolled in the medical marijuana program. Detroit attorney Matt Abel, who is working on the amendment drive, said that the abuse and violations by the police and prosecutors of the Michigan went far beyond and really electrified them to get behind this movement. He said that they must act now or face years of sorting out the law and creating reform. Marijuana activists in the state have already been practicing collecting their signatures because they are also trying for a recall effort against the state attorney general Bill Schuette. They have until March to collect about 800,000 signatures to place that on the November ballot as well.
All right. And of course, Matt Abel, a longtime member of the NORML Legal Committee and very active with Michigan NORML, a friend of mine, friend of the show. Great work, Matt, on working to end adult marijuana prohibition in the state of Michigan. And, this is good news. If anyone is wanting to get involved, just visit michigannormal.org. You can get involved with your local Michigan chapter. And what's really cool about the Michigan NORML setup is they have their statewide Michigan NORML affiliate, and then they have run their state on what they call a subchapter system, where basically they just have a liaison in each county, or they try to get one in each county. They're still working on getting one in each county, but someone that you can call, someone that's knowledgeable on the issues, who can pass along the concerns of the people at the local level to the state affiliate. And the state affiliate can work then with the legislators and with other activist groups to try to pass what is best for the entire state. I think it's a great model, and I'm glad to announce also that other states are following suit with this model, coming up with these subchapters. If you're interested in getting involved with Michigan NORML and becoming a subchapter liaison, just visit again michigannormal.org. And if you're interested in getting involved with NORML in your local area and there's not a local NORML, you can visit normal.org/chapters to try to find one or to get the information you need to start one on your own. If you're interested in starting a NORML chapter, to find out what's involved, just send an email to start@normal.org. That's start@normal.org. You don't have to put anything in the email, just make it a blank one. It'll send back to you the instructions, the application packet, everything you need to get started with your own local grassroots NORML activist group.
And for the second year in a row, Florida will consider medical marijuana legislation. House Joint Resolution 353 and Senate Joint Resolution 1028 propose to put the question of allowing medical marijuana in the state of Florida to the voters. If approved by both the House and the Senate, it would appear on the 2012 ballot as a state referendum to amend the Constitution. Just like last year, it will be a long journey. After getting an okay from the Florida legislature, it would then have to pass by at least 60% of the voters, since it is an amendment to the state constitution. The legislature comes back from their winter break tomorrow, and even though neither of the resolutions actually made it on the schedule for a hearing, the group that worked with the resolutions, the Florida Cannabis Action Network, says that they are very pleased that they are in the legislature for a second year in a row. The director of the group, Jody James, says the group is also planning on petitioning the governor, Rick Scott, to ask him to urge the legislature to pass a bill that would bypass the constitutional amendment process and just allow sick people in his state to have access to medical marijuana. Now, for more information on that effort, you can visit their website, which is fldecides.org. Florida NORML is also holding a benefit concert to help raise funds for the effort on February 19th in Fort Lauderdale. They'll be hosting dozens of musical acts and informational speakers, so they're getting real active in the Sunshine State.
Oh, good for them. Again, check out normal.org/chapters. You'll find all the contact information you need for those Florida chapters that are working so hard. Also, Robert Platshorn, the Black Tuna, he's working with the NORML Seniors Tour out of Florida, kind of an outreach program for senior citizens to explain to them what's in their benefit for marijuana legalization, why it needs to happen. At the beginning of this story, Carrie, was this a medical or a legalization or a decrim that we were talking about here?
This is medical.
Medical, okay.
It's a mirror of the effort that they put out last year that would allow sick people and a caregiver, kind of basically the same thing we have in some of the other states.
Right. Okay, thanks. And the reason I wanted to make sure that I was right on this is because I think one of the ways that we can sell this, because I know a lot of people out there who might be in the South, might be in Florida, are thinking, not going to happen, man. Nobody down here wants it. It's so conservative. They so hate pot. But I really think this can happen. I really think you can make this happen. And here's a little piece of advice I would give to people that are trying to push this. I think the OxyContin epidemic that they have down there, the pill mills that they've got going on down in Florida, might be a real good way of getting into this issue by pointing out these studies that we've recently shown you on the show of how the use of cannabis can help reduce the amount of opiates, particularly like OxyContin and Vicodins and Percocets and such that people would be using. They can cut down how many of those that they will be using. Use that science, use those studies to show the people of Florida that by recognizing the medical use of cannabis, you're not going to increase a drug problem. You actually may be working to decrease a drug problem.
And an update on a case that really touched our hearts here on The Stash. The case is of 23-year-old cannabis user Rachel Hoffman, who was murdered execution style after being pressured by police to wear a wire and make a setup buy. On Friday, the Tallahassee City Commissioners approved a $2.6 million settlement before a wrongful death suit being pursued by Rachel's parents. Her parents were preparing to go forward with their lawsuit, charging that the police took a young, eager college student that got busted for marijuana and turned her into a confidential informant who went on a buy with $13,000 in marked bills to buy ecstasy, cocaine, and a gun. Never having any training in law enforcement, she was taken away from the approved and surveyed spot, shot 5 times, and had her car, credit card, and all the marked money stolen. Police found her body 36 hours after they lost track of her in a roadside ditch about 50 miles away from the scene, causing her parents untold grief over the terror that must have been her last hours alive. The murderers were caught. 26-year-old Danilo Bradshaw and 29-year-old Andrew Green are serving life sentences for her murder. Jury selection for the lawsuit began last week, and the trial was scheduled to begin today. But after a closed-door session with attorneys late on Friday as they were finishing up jury selection, the city commissioners voted 3-2 to approve the settlement. Jim English, the city attorney for Tallahassee, Florida, said the first $200,000 will be paid by the city in the next couple of weeks. Now, the rest will be paid after the state legislature passes a claims bill, which could take years. But the money isn't at the heart of the case for Rachel's parents, who told media on Friday evening they are grateful that this part of it is over. After her death, the Florida legislature passed Rachel's Law that requires police to adopt new policies to help protect police informants. Police are no longer allowed to tell informants in Florida that they will reduce their sentences for cooperating, and they are allowed to talk to their lawyers first before they agree to help, something that they never offered Rachel Hoffman before that fateful day.
Here's an idea. How about we just stop this practice of using snitches, of using criminal informants, of using people who are caught with small amounts of personal possession or small amounts, user amounts for sale, and threatening them with prison, scaring the hell out of them in order to get them to do the cop work that you guys can't find a way to do. There's no reason you should be putting these people in this situation. Mostly young, inexperienced people at that. Last Friday, I told you the story of the Detroit teen who was just recently killed. Shelley Hilliard, age 19. The cops sent her on a deal to go buy $335 worth of coke and marijuana, and she was killed, she was beaten, she was set on fire. This is what's happening here. We're trying to use the little fish that the cops catch as bait to catch the big fish they can't seem to catch, and well, like bait, they oftentimes get swallowed up in the process. It's wrong. And it all stems from this need to try to police people for doing to themselves what they want to do with drugs. And it's going to keep happening. It can't not happen. The prosecution of the war on drugs and the catching of the people involved with it requires police to do these criminal informant type stings, because the person buying the weed or the coke or the ecstasy or whatever, and the person selling the weed or the coke or the ecstasy or whatever, are both two adults that are consenting to get themselves involved in that purchase. To the people involved in it, they don't feel like a crime is going on. So the police have to go to extra measures to try to find a way to collect evidence of a crime that the people involved with it don't think is a crime. And most of the people around us tend to think as long as you're not hurting anyone else, it's not a crime. It's just got to stop.
Hey, Russ, what do you think about a break?
I think we take a break, and when we come back, we'll have some Roots Monday music from the Reefer Jazz area with Ernest Rogers. Stay tuned.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support Normal Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the only way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak to my attorney, Omar Figueroa." Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at www.omarfigueroa.com.
You can squat on a pit bull, but that don't get you rhubarb pie.
There is a peaceful solution called a peace revolution. And now let's take back America.
Hi, this is Willie Nelson. Like millions of freedom-loving Americans, I'm a marijuana smoker, and I don't think that should be any of the government's business. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the responsible use of marijuana. The next time you light up, take the time to let your elected officials know how you feel. It's time we legalize marijuana and stop treating marijuana smokers like criminals. For more information on how you can help legalize marijuana, please contact NORML at NORML.org.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 1920s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stopped arresting responsible marijuana smokers. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at NORML.org.
It's time for your daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420 friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Today we bring you tunes for Roots Monday, our celebration of the music that evolved into the popular modern music of today. We pick the best of blues, country, folk, and jazz with a 420 feel and serve it up for you every Monday. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on Normal Show Live, send it to us at stash@normal.org. Now here's some more great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tunes.
All right, welcome back, folks. We're going to go right back to the Reefer Jazz era. For those of you who are new to the show, of course, that's the time between the 1920s and 1940s when mostly Harlem and then other jazz musicians around the country began taking up the cause of smoking the reefer, the muggles, the gauge, whatever you want to call it, the jive. And a lot of those songs you hear about where they're singing about jive, they're talking about weed, and had a whole bunch of them. And of course, our own Cannabob had a great show here, the Viper Hour. We hope to bring it back where we learn all about these Reefer Jazz tunes. And this is one of the tunes that he found for us in the Reefer Jazz library. It's Ernest Rogers, and I pulled this up because, of course, this weekend is playoff football for my Packers, and this guy spells Rogers just like the quarterback does, so that's good enough for me. This is Ernest Rogers with Willie the Chimney Sweeper on your Roots Monday Daily Toker Tunes.
Have you ever heard about Willie the Weeper? Had a job as a chimney sweeper. He had the dope habit and he had it bad. Listen while I tell you about a dream he had. He went down to the dope shop one Saturday night. He knew the lights would all be burning bright. Well, I guess he smoked a dozen pills or more. When he woke up, he was on a foreign shore. The Queen of Sheba was the first he met. She called him lovey-dovey and honey pet. She gave him a great big automobile with a diamond headlight and a golden wheel. Down in Honolulu, Willie fell in a trance, seeing the dusky beauties do the hula dance. His sweetie got in jail and Willie sure did shout when he got the news that she had wiggled out. He landed with a splash in the river Nile, riding on a sea-going crocodile. He winked at Cleopatra, she said, ain't he a sight? He said, how about a date for next Saturday night? He had 1,000,000 cattle and he had 1,000,000 sheep, had 1,000,000 vessels on the ocean deep, had $1 million all in nickels and dimes. Well, he knew because he counted it 1,000 times. He landed in New York one evening late. He asked his sugar for an after date. Started to kiss her and she started to pout when bang, bang, and the door gave out.
Hey, tokers and tokettes, this is Radical Russ from Normal Show Live. We're proud to be the voice of the marijuana nation and proud to have you on our team. Now, you can represent NSL in your own Normal Show Live gear from handmadeapparel.biz. Adam Hand of Handmade Apparel is one of us and a huge supporter of our show. He's designed the classic blockhead line of NSL shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. Worn by Radical Russ, Cannabis Carry, and Ganja John on the show and at live events, the designs feature their iconic logos and the "It's got to be 420 somewhere in the world" tagline. Proceeds directly benefit Normal Show Live and HandmadeApparel.biz, one of our community's strongest supporters. You can also get your Cannabis Cure UK, Ganja John Show, Irie Island Hour, and more gear from the Normal Network at HandmadeApparel.biz. Visit HandmadeApparel.biz today.
Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back after a word from these 420 friendly sponsors. Wait a minute. This is internet radio. There are no dials here.
Bitches have something to say.
All of us can get a piece of that pie. And the reason we don't have headway is because that 1% can't figure out how they're going to make all the money.
Bitches have something to say.
Your Sunday morning and Wednesday evening pot and politics, immediately following Danny Danko's Free Weed here on
The Libra Lounge.
Legalization, decriminalization, lowest law enforcement priority, medical marijuana, ganja sacrament, consumer cannabis, industrial hemp. The world of marijuana law reform involves many different aspects of cannabis that interact nearly every public policy discussion in America, including healthcare, the economy, global climate change, law enforcement in prisons, immigration, religion, free speech, energy policy, and war. Now, we take a look at how re-legalizing marijuana will change the world in our Normal Show Live Cannabis Conversations.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Half past the hour, and I want to take this time to talk a little bit with you all about language and how we talk about what we're doing. And words actually matter. You know, a lot of people, they don't think they do, but the way that you phrase things and the way that you talk about things does affect how you think about them and how you act on them. So it's important for all of us to understand what we're saying and why we're saying it. So with that in mind, I wanted to cover the language of legalization. You know, we talk about different legalization bills or legalization initiatives coming up, but when you identify them and you start talking about the particulars of them, we find that many people have many different ideas about what legalization is. And we see this in the polling as well. When you do polling on the general question of, should we legalize marijuana? Should the use of marijuana be legal? Well, you get like 50% now in the Gallup poll, and some other polls, it's always in the 40s or, you know, somewhere in there. But when you start attaching particulars to it, when you start explaining what that legalization is going to mean, you start to see the support drop. We saw it with Prop 19 back in 2010, when the initial polls were showing above 50% polling, some even into the 60s in some places and some demographics, support for the idea of legalization. But then, once particulars started being mentioned, we saw the support drop off. We're seeing something similar in Washington state right now, where they had a poll that was showing a large support for marijuana legalization in general, but most recent polls are showing, as the particulars are coming out, more and more support falling away. So how can we avoid this? How can we avoid the problem of getting our hopes up and feeling like we're just about ready to legalize when we get those initial polls in, when people say, yes, we ought to legalize weed? And how do we avoid the letdown when we start describing what that is, start defining what legalization is, and losing those poll numbers? Well, I think part of the problem is among us as activists not even agreeing among ourselves what exactly legalization it is. For example, up in Washington state, they got the I-502 that they're calling legalization. But when I think of legalization, I think of beer drinkers and cigarette smokers. To me, marijuana will be legal when I am treated somewhat like a beer drinker or a cigarette smoker. In that, and I've got the little the guideline here that you can take a look at, can I possess it? Now, most of the legalizations that come out, most of the initiatives that come out have some sort of personal possession. It's usually an ounce that we're talking about, and 502 does the same thing. Prop 19 was going to do something similar. They'll have a limit, of 1 ounce of possession. Now, this is not like a beer drinker or a tobacco smoker. They can have as many cartons of smokes as they want. They can have kegs of beer if they want. But we do have to start somewhere. So if an initiative or a bill contains something that allows me to possess a reasonable amount of marijuana, and I think an ounce to start with is not unreasonable. I mean, we can work on getting that a little better, but an ounce will do for now. Does the initiative allow me to grow it? Now, this is where we see some legalization initiatives differing from what I would consider to be legalization. We see in Washington with the I-502, they're not going to allow you to grow at home. The Prop 19 back in 2010 did allow you to grow at home, but it mandated a 5x5 growing area, which some people said, well, that's not true legalization. It needs to be at least 10x10. As far as I'm concerned, 5x5, 10x10, 6 plants, 2 plants, 3 plants, whatever it might be, so long as I'm allowed to grow some cannabis in my home, I'm happy with that being called legalization. Besides, I mean, practically speaking, once some cannabis is legal in your home, you're going to have to do something out of the ordinary to get some authority there to inspect how big your garden is. So as long as you're keeping cool and we have the right to grow at least 1 plant, well, that takes away a lot of the probable causes and a lot of the evidentiary procedures, finding a stem or a seed or a leaf, or you visiting the hydroponic shop. That's no big deal if you're allowed to grow 1 plant. We see even medical bills come through that don't now allow patients to grow their own medicine, to grow their own plants. So as far as I'm concerned, if I'm allowed to possess, but I'm not allowed to grow, that's something a little less than legalization. It does make it legal for me to possess it, but it puts the control of the plant in the hands of corporations or in the hands of government or some combination therein. And it's not that I'm against corporations or business or government regulating or businesses selling or even Walmart for that matter, or Philip Morris, I don't care, getting involved in the marijuana business. Because as long as we have that home grow right, I don't have to smoke Budweiser weed. You don't have to smoke Walmart weed. We can do what we're already doing. Grow weed ourselves, get it from our friends. And if other people want to spend less on the cheap, swaggy Walmart weed, well, more power to them. That leaves more good kind bud for me. I'm fine with that. But for me, legalization has to include the right to home grow. It is one of the most solid planks in the NORML platform. We've written post upon post about the need to protect the right to home grow because we are at our heart a consumer lobby. And as a consumer lobby, we have to protect the rights of the consumer. And if we give up the right to home grow and we cede that to corporations and government, we have no check on them. There's no checks and balances. It's not that I am going to grow. I just need the right to be able to grow. And that it will be enough to keep those corporations and governments bringing us a reasonably priced, well-inspected, and at least fairly good product. I still think our home growers will beat them no matter what. I mean, if you're Walmart growing a huge field of weed, you're going to harvest it all at once. You're not going to take a whole bunch of care to each individual plant, right? So there will still always be a market for homegrown. There will always be a market for boutique buds, whatever you want to call them. So that's a part, for me, that I would consider to be legalization. The next two, as far as what is legalization, can I buy it and can I sell it? And I've particularly done them in this order, because this is kind of the order I think when I'm evaluating these things. Am I going to support them? Can I possess it's number one? Can I grow it's number two? Number three, can I buy it? If we have a legalization that only allows home grow, that only allows us personal and to give to one another, kind of like what we've got in Oregon with the Mother Teresa model of medical marijuana, no sales legal, then you are going to find what we're getting here in Oregon is everybody's buying and selling anyway. And that keeps in the marijuana movement or in the marijuana industry that black market element to it. So long as the buying of the weed is illegal, either from my friend or from a store, we still leave ourselves vulnerable to the violence and predation of a black market. So I feel it's important in a legalization measure that we have a way to buy marijuana. And can I sell marijuana? Now, this one's the fourth one in the list because I feel being able to buy it as a consumer is more important for me to protect than me being able to sell it as a grower. If a legalization initiative possessed those first three qualities, can I possess it? Can I grow it? Can I buy it? But the only people that could sell it were through state authorized stores or something like that, I might be able to support that and call it legalization. I don't feel that the personal grower being able to sell is necessarily a deal breaker. I would prefer it. I would prefer that the personal grower be able to sell. But we're running up against, that's kind of akin to allowing just any old personal baker to bake bread and sell it on the street corner or whatever. Something that's being manufactured, something that's being produced for human consumption. I'd like to have a little more control over that as far as a society. I'd like to make sure it's inspected and, we don't have guys growing mold-laden, pesticide-ridden bud and, with no oversight and selling that. So long as we can address those things, I'm for it. I think we've got a good legalization ahead of us. Then we get to the question of, is anybody worse off afterwards? Now, this is something that's really, takes more effect in a medical marijuana state where patients have to ask themselves, like they did with Prop 19. Well, what I've got here as a registered medicinal user of cannabis is pretty darn good. We don't want to vote for something that is going to make it worse for ourselves. Now, of course, during that Prop 19 thing, it was very frustrating to see people with that I got's mine syndrome saying, well, the other 90% of you can just continue to be criminals because you might ruin my good thing. But we still should not be allowing these bills to take us backwards in any area. And when I talk about this, any worse off than now, it's not just necessarily in medical states. You know, we could talk about this, you know, if say a initiative were to come up that said, you know, we're going to legalize possession of an ounce, but we're going to increase the penalties on possession more than an ounce. Now we have to start thinking about whether that's something worth supporting. Do we support trading not being criminals at a low level for being worse criminals at a higher level? This is something that we have to think about and be aware of as we're evaluating these initiatives and these bills. And does it cover all adults? This is last on my list because, again, if I get the first 5, I've got some wiggle room on the 6th. And what I'm referring to here by all adults, in my personal, and again, I want to make this clear, I am speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for Normal, particularly in this issue. I believe the right to use cannabis should be extended to everyone age 18 and older. As far as I'm concerned, if you're old enough to carry a gun in the sand, you're old enough to carry a bong in your hand. Okay? If you're, and this has always frustrated me, and personally, I'll tell you, I'm that way for alcohol too. I actually think in this country, when you're 18 and an adult and you can fight for your country and you can buy weapons, and you can vote, then you're an adult. Let's make people adults or not adults. Let's not have this weird 18 to 20-year-old gap where we're pseudo adults, where we can kind of do some things. I've never liked that. Again, speaking personally. So as far as I'm concerned, when I look at a legalization initiative, I would like to see it legalize for adults 18 and older. Now, I understand where there will be pushback on that because people will say, well, Russ, you can't do that because some 18-year-olds are still in high school and nobody's going to go for legalizing marijuana at a level that's lower than alcohol. I've even said that to you on a number of occasions. But marijuana is not alcohol. Marijuana is not even tobacco. So by saying it should be regulated, and this is one of the flaws, I think, in the regulate it like alcohol, regulate it like wine, is because we're asking to regulate it like something more harmful than it really is. And we're kind of seeding that point in the framing and in the minds of the people. It's a trade-off, though, because you have to give them something that the people understand. They have to, you know, they understand the alcohol model at least. But it's a tricky business there, talking about that frame about, you know, treat it like alcohol, because it's not alcohol and it shouldn't be treated like alcohol. When you start treating marijuana like alcohol, you get things like 5 nanogram per milliliter DUID, right? Oh, let's treat it like alcohol. Well, it's not alcohol. It's a different thing, a much safer thing. So as far as legalization in my vocabulary, I would like to see legalization include 18 and up. If it cannot include 18 and up, and I understand that sacrifice might need to be made, then we go back to number 5 on that list. Is anybody worse off after? To make the 18 to 20-year-olds more criminalized after legalization pass, that to me is unacceptable. 18 to 20-year-olds are already part of the largest demographic that uses cannabis in the first place. They're our base. And making them more criminal is not necessary. See, a couple of these things that have happened in this bid to try to get legalization is to address the two fears the public has. What about the stone drivers and what about the children? Well, as far as what about the stone drivers, they go for these per se DUIDs. I don't think that was necessary. I think we could say, well, first of all, how are we catching pot smokers now? It's not like we're legalizing pot and suddenly there will be pot using drivers. No, they're already out there. How do we catch them now? And second of all, do take something from the alcohol world. You know, the open container law, can't have an open beer, can't have an open wine or any bottle of booze in your car where the driver can get at it or the passengers. Make a smoldering joint rule. Make a no bag rule. Make it so that if there's marijuana available within the compartment of the car, that's treated like an open container. That addresses that what about the stone drivers. And as far as the what about the children, we just need to point out that the children that they're worried about are already criminalized for the use of marijuana. There's no need to criminalize them any further. If criminalizing them now hasn't stopped them, criminalizing them more after it becomes legal is not the stopgap measure to try to get them not to use it. Let's learn from tobacco And let's learn from tobacco, which is at its lowest rates ever for teenagers, and start educating them and start telling them the truth about it. And I bet that once marijuana is legalized in a generation or so, we'll see young people fall away as the users of marijuana and it become more of a middle-aged and older person's thing as kids think it's less forbidden fruit and less interesting in its granny's glaucoma medicine. Hey, we're going to take a break. When we come back, some Radical Rant. We'll be right back after this. Don't forget on tonight's A Different View with Jen, Iva, and Sarah, very special guest, actress Heather Donahue from the Blair Witch Project and other independent films, who's now a marijuana activist. Catch it, 8 o'clock tonight.
You're listening to Normal Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation. This is Normal Show Live.
It's tough talking to kids about marijuana, especially if you might be a parent who dabbled a time or two in your youth. So to help you out, get your copy of Dr. Mitch Earlywine's latest book, A Parent's Guide to Marijuana. Dr. Earlywine is an associate professor of psychology at the State University of New York at Albany and an expert on the studies concerning marijuana, its effect on health and society, and the methodology behind the statistics. He is a frequent guest here on our daily audio stash. Dr. Earlywine lays it all out without the propaganda and scare tactics that parents know won't work with teenagers. He presents a rational understanding of cannabis, what it is and what it isn't, and why kids shouldn't be using marijuana. You can order today through Amazon.com or check our links at our blog, stash.normal.org.
Great. Drugs make me strong. Drugs make me smart. Drugs make me feel good. Drugs make me cool.
You believe that crap? Huh? You believe all that stuff they're handing you about drugs? You want to believe in something? How about yourself? Don't do drugs.
You want answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious. I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
Well, folks, if you follow my Twitter feed or Facebook page at Radical Russ, you know this weekend was one hellacious one for me, let me tell you. And it got me to doing a lot of thinking about this movement and the people in it and how we're interacting with one another. And one thing that keeps coming up again and again, and I especially hear this from the grassroots, I hear this from supporters of many different organizations out there. Why can't we all get along? What's up with all the division? Everybody's being so divisive. Divisive. And I'd like to address that and maybe try to identify some of the ways in which we've become divisive and maybe suggest some ways that we can heal that. First of all, let's identify how divisiveness in the movement came about. When we look back to 1970, we have the founding of NORML, National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, who supports and did support, will always support, the right of any person out there, any adult who is responsible to use cannabis. That's it. That right there is what we stand for. If you use cannabis, we support you. Enough. Now, as far as I'm concerned, and when I look at it, that is the most inclusive thing you could possibly say, isn't it? I don't care why you smoke pot. We support you. But as time went on, people started forming into different areas and different niches of marijuana reform. We saw the foundation of Marijuana Policy Project, which was people who were in NORML, staff members of NORML, who then cleaved away and became Marijuana Policy Project, focusing specifically on marijuana policy, just, changing laws, just the policies involved there. We saw the medical marijuana movement begin in the late 80s and the early 90s, where we used to have a group of 100% of the people who consume cannabis for whatever reason. And for the sake of politics, for the sake of getting something passed, we decided as a movement, and I'm not saying like there was a meeting and we voted on it, but this is what happened. We figured that we could pass laws so long as we took the sickest, most disabled pot smokers and found a way to get it passed for them. We changed our message from being, you have the right to consume cannabis, to you have the right to consume cannabis if you fit in a certain special protected class, in a certain special protected group. And then we saw in the 80s the rise of Jack Herer, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, and the reemergence of the American hemp movement, where another sliver of the pot smokers were cleaved away to say, well, we support your right to grow and use cannabis if it's being used for industrial purposes. And this has continued, and we've seen this in many different ways, in many different orgs and magazines. But the point I'm trying to make here is the divisiveness happened long ago when we started trying to define cannabis consumers or marijuana itself as something divisible. We had Brother Love and the rise of the religious use argument. We're using for ganja sacrament. It's okay that we use cannabis if we're worshiping a god or whatever, however you phrase that. That's where this divisiveness has come, is from people over time who got frustrated with the fact that legalization for all of us wasn't going to happen. Gosh, it's just not happening. We're not getting anywhere. And decided that, well, let's just go get legalization for some people. Let's just go get legalization under the First Amendment for religious use for some people. Let's go get legalization under affirmative defense for medical conditions for some people. So if people want to talk about divisiveness, I don't know how you're talking about normal when we are the ones that support all of those uses, all of those people, the religious users, the medical users, the industrial users, and the people who just like to get high. Part of this, realization, epiphany, whatever you want to call it, was involved in a Twitter thing that I had over the weekend. And I want to apologize to people that follow me. I lost my cool, and I tell you, it was a real tough weekend for me. But what it revolved around, what kind of was the spark that lit the fuse for me, was when I was referring to an activist and saying that, we also support people like, and then I mentioned the activist, who are just young people who like to get high, or young people that like to smoke pot, or I don't remember how I phrased it. And this young activist got incensed, got furious that I would dare to refer to them being a user of cannabis for recreational purposes. And it got back into that whole patient thing. I'm medical, I'm using it, my if is more important. My if is special. Again, I don't care. I don't care why you smoke pot. I don't care. But the divisiveness happens when people like Stephen DeAngelo say, I don't support the legalization of marijuana for recreational purposes. Because that if isn't valid. Your if is not good enough. The divisiveness happens when we try to say that there is such a thing as medical marijuana. Guess what, folks? There's no such thing as medical marijuana. There's no such thing as ganja sacrament. There's no such thing as industrial hemp. There is such thing as cannabis, and it's either legal or it's not legal. How you use it doesn't matter. If I were to set a bud on the table and around it put a picture of a Rastafarian, a guy in a wheelchair, a hippie with dreadlocks, and a guy in a suit, whose marijuana is it? How would you know by looking at the person who and looking at the bud who that marijuana belongs to? It's not like medical marijuana is purple and ganja sacrament is red and consumer cannabis is pink and pot is blue. I mean, yeah, there's strains with different colors, but you get my point. Marijuana's fungible. I know this all the way back from the Raich decision. Marijuana's fungible. It's pot. Pot is pot. It does not change from a medicine to a sacrament to a crime when it gets passed from hand to hand. It's the same pot. And we are the same people using it under the same right. I think it's time now for all of these disparate tribes, the hempsters, the medicalizers, the legalizers, the anarchists, whoever you are. It's time for us all to put that aside and say, look, As a recreational smoker, I don't get anywhere if all we do is concentrate on medical. You, as a medical user, will never get all the medical rights you deserve so long as cops are coming after me. You hempsters over there, they're not going to let you grow hemp so long as they think that I'm going to be growing pot in between it. You religious users over there, you don't get to have your religious right because they think if you have your religious right, pot smokers like me are suddenly going to become religious. If we don't hang together, we will hang separately in this issue. It's time to recognize, and this is not to say that the individual groups and these groups with their particular agendas do not continue with those agendas because, much like Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, they have different jobs. Air Force flies planes, Navy runs ships, Army, fights on the ground, etc., right? But they're all in the same military. They're all in the same armed force fighting for the same country. And likewise, we in all these movements and all these groups are individual forces fighting particular battles in the theater, but we're all, or should all, be fighting the same war for the same thing, and that is to legalize cannabis. No ifs, just legalize cannabis for everyone. So it's going to lead me to changing a few of the ways that I think of things. Going back to language from the previous conversation too, the term medical marijuana, I'm going to start saying marijuana for medicinal use or marijuana being used medicinally. Medical marijuana implies that there are different kinds of marijuana. And if medical's the good one, then that implies that there's marijuana that's bad. I'm not going to say that anymore. Marijuana for industrial purposes, cannabis for industrial purposes, or just plain hemp. Those words will be just fine. Some other things that we can learn how to say. One of the terms that I was thinking about that I feel is kind of weird and divisive is the term medical marijuana patient. Think about that term for a second. Medical marijuana patient. Usually when you say patient, think of some of the other ways that you say patient. Cancer patient, AIDS patient, glaucoma patient, pain patient, MS patient. Don't we usually describe someone being a patient based on their condition, not on their medicine? I don't remember anybody ever being called an insulin patient. They're called diabetics. I don't remember anyone being called an OxyContin patient. They're called, chronic pain sufferers or whatever. The only drug I could think of where we name a person a patient based on their use of the drug is methadone patient. And in that case, they're using methadone to get off the addiction to heroin. So maybe medical marijuana patient is just a weird term. How about patient who uses marijuana medicinally? Or patient using marijuana? Because by saying medical marijuana patient, I think we once again make a false distinction between people that use cannabis. And it leads to that idea that, well, I'm a patient and I have to use cannabis. You're just a recreational smoker and you can choose not to. Why should I have to choose not to? If it's a right, it's a right. Saying that I should have to choose not to exercise a right just because I'm healthy, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I've been thinking a lot about this divisiveness and about getting people together, and I want to bring in other people to talk about this. If you'd like to get on the phone and call us in our next hour, phone number is 971-533-7111. You are the stakeholders in this. Tell us in leadership what we need to do, how we need to fix this. What can we do to better serve our constituency? It's time we start doing it. It's 2012 already. Time to legalize. All right, folks, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us here for the first hour. And those of you on the podcast, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you tomorrow. On tomorrow's podcast, Todd Armstrong in from the road for Todd's Toker Topics and more. So check that out. It's also Electric Tuesday. Get you some great dance music. Stay tuned for A Different View live tonight at 8 o'clock. And for Cannabis Carrying Ganja Dawn, I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is Normal Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Take it out one more time. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. it and it goes down smoother.
Legalize it. Don't criticize.
This is Peter Tosh for NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Did you know that more than 400,000 Americans were arrested last year for the possession of marijuana? People are being sentenced to up to 40 years for even standing beside a joint. Well, I think it is definitely time for you to help doing something.
You're listening to the Normal Network, where the time is 4:20.